Golden Black Radio is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. At Academy Sports and Outdoors, we carry all the gear you need from the top brands, all at prices you'll love. And now shopping at the Academy is more convenient than ever. We offer free assembly on in-store purchases of most bikes and grills, plus free and easy curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Want to save even more every day? Open and use an Academy Sports and Outdoors credit card to get 5% off future purchases when you're approved. Save time and money at Academy Sports and Outdoors and have fun out there. Welcome into another Friday edition. Hard to believe it's already Friday. Golden Black Radio presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. Hope you had a great shortened holiday week following an impressive all-around performance in a shutout win over Ball State. Over in the opener, the Boilermakers are back, and Purdue looking to make it 2-0, the start for the 2025 season, coming up on Saturday at Ross-Ade Stadium when they welcome the Southern Illinois Salukis to town. We're going to talk all about it with our entire Golden Black crew throughout tonight's show, leading with Tom and Dub here in just a few minutes. But first, Golden Black Radio is brought to you by these fantastic sponsors, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for relaxing staycation or weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's welcome on the dynamic duo, our football coverers for GoldenBlack.com, Tom Dienard and Dub Jellison. And guys, welcome. Great to have you again on a Friday show. A week basking in the glow following a 31-0 win. Boilers have been back to business since then. Tom, how important was it? You know, you were here. You know, Dub is kind of a newbie, right, to the group. But, I mean, you and I were in Bloomington together, right? Snowy night, historic night for all the wrong reasons. I remember going up into that empty elevator shaft, going back up to the press boxes, nobody saying anything. You know, there was a real finality to it all. I understand that we're turning the page from 2024. New staff, largely new team. But how important is it for all those newbies, even the ones that weren't there for that game in Bloomington, to have that process of the summer rewarded with the result that they got in week one? Not only with the win, but how they looked in the win. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
There we go. It adds more validity. I was just testing you, Derek. You passed. It adds more validity to what Barry Odom and his whole staff have been sort of selling, to trust the process, right? First time out, they checked a lot of boxes, 31-0. So just a very nice first step for Purdue under a new regime, Derek and Dub. It's almost like I said, an expansion team, right, with 82 new players. I think 43 guys made their debuts as Boilermakers last week. So, yeah, again, trust the process, and it looks like what Barry Odom has been preaching to the players is true, and that really helps with the buy-in, right? That helped with the buy-in for the players moving forward. So, next step, Southern Illinois. We'll get to them later, but they do have a little bit of a reputation to be a giant killer. So, so far so good, guys. When you win, your food tastes better. Your wife's prettier, your dog's smarter. So everything's really rosy right now in West Lafayette.
Ryan Brown sure looked pretty on Saturday, Dub. Really nice performance for him. And you had an interesting article this week on your conversation with Ryan, who obviously found his way back to Purdue, I guess, in this new transfer portal world that we live in. I guess this is all normal, right? Because it's so abnormal that it's going to be normal now. What did last week's win mean to him to come back and secure a victory after, not only winning the starting job, not that he needed validation for that, but to win the job and then play the way that he did in his return?
It was huge. It was absolutely huge. Not only for him, but just I think the program and the offense. He went 0-2 last year as a starter. Obviously, played lights out against Illinois in that second half. Took a step back against Oregon and then never really got an opportunity the rest of the year. So him stepping in 2025, being the guy, I think was big for his confidence. And just watching him interact in practice throughout fall camp, even getting a chance to talk to him a little bit in the times that we have over the last few years. You can tell he's an intense guy and he's a confident guy. And I think that kind of bubbled over into Saturday. And, he told us on, I believe it was Wednesday, we talked to him. Winning the starting job was big. It was a nice pat on the back, but he's here to win games. And that's exactly what he did. And now he's got to go prove it time and time again. So that'll be the next step for him.
A lot of fun names on this team, Tom. Ryan Brown's not really one of them. It's a very kind of common name, but, Nitro Tuggle, who we've talked about this offseason, right? One of those first names maybe in all of college football. But I put Chop Harkless up there. Here's a guy that was only a handful of the ones to actually stick around. Now he looks like he's going to be a key part right in the teeth of that Boilermaker defense.
Yeah, Chops, all 345 pounds of number 97, Chops Harkless. Derek, I think he's got a couple 100 pounds on you. I know he's got about 150 pounds on me. I'm just glad I don't have to try to block the guy, right? And, the coaches were really excited about Chops even in the spring. He actually lost weight, if you can believe that. And a little more trimmed up as far as a 345-pound guy can be trimmed up. He's trimmed up, I guess. And, again, the staff's been very, very pleased with Chops. On the inside with T.J. Lindsey, guys, that's a pretty nice tackle tandem there. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch those guys this year develop. TJ's a pretty quick guy. That 3-technique guy who's got a little bit of a burst to him for about a 300-pounder. And then, of course, Chops is that ultimate run stuffer. He's the block eater. He's going to absorb a lot of double teams. His work really isn't glamorous, guys. Just to tie up blockers so those terrific linebackers can make plays and clean up the garbage behind him. So, yeah, Chops is a fun guy to talk to. He's got a great name, and like I said, he should be a handful for a lot of centers and guards this year.
Yeah, the good news for us, Tom, is that muscle weighs more than fat. So That's why, we don't have to worry about that as much. Dub, a lot of great recruits, a lot of really important recruits on campus. I mean, anybody that you're bringing to campus for the most part is an important recruit once it kind of gets there down that far down the road. I guess it's always good to win and look impressive in front of the guys that you're trying to sell your program to. But what did some of those guys have to say afterwards from their experience at Ross-Ade Stadium last Saturday?
I think first and foremost, we got to start with Israel Abrams, 4-star quarterback out of Illinois. His objective in visiting Purdue was looking at the offense and seeing how well he could fit into what Josh Henson and Dan Henshaw and those guys want from the quarterback position. And he was thoroughly impressed. He talked about, kind of seeing himself at quarterback. He spoke glowingly of Ryan Brown. Excuse me. It's an offense that is very similar to the one that they ran last year at Montini Catholic, where he led them to a state championship over in Illinois. So he's the 1A guy in the 2027 class as far as quarterbacks go. Maybe even across the board. He's probably the top guy on the board right now. So getting him closer to a potential commitment is big. I think Purdue is firmly in the mix there. I think Iowa State is a very legitimate threat to them. And then other schools like Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, they're also in on him as well. So that'll be a fight to the end. But I think Purdue's right there. And then, Keon Thomas, a guy that I'm super impressed with. I saw him a few weeks ago for Warren Central, really coming to his own. He's had a breakout junior year so far. He's close to 400 yards rushing through 2 games. And he's a guy that also likes what he saw from the Purdue offense. I know the Devin Mockabee in the ground game didn't necessarily get going on Saturday, but he's very high on the Boilermakers, and I think they're probably the early front runners. There's a long way to go for him as well, but the early front runners for him. Then you go guys like Brian DeMoss and J.J. Chapman, Oscar Sloan. A lot of those guys are pretty early in their recruitments. But all of them spoke glowingly of Purdue and the coaching staff. I think all the recruits that I've talked to speak glowingly of the position coaches recruiting them and Barry Odom and kind of the direction of the program, which is what Odom has been selling. So a lot of great reviews for week 1. And they'll have another opportunity to impress the recruits on Saturday night.
Yeah, good afternoon, just all around. No question about that. And that's what happens when you win 31-0. Tom, here's Southern Illinois. They have not played Purdue since the Darrell Hazel era. but an FCS team, they're ranked 14th nationally for whatever that's worth. They also play in the Missouri Valley, which is essentially like the SEC or Big Ten of FCS. I mean, they've got 3 of the top 4 teams in the country. They've got 5 teams in the top 15 right now. And Southern Illinois is the 5th team of that group. So, to put it in perspective, I mean, we just saw Tarleton win. They beat Army. North Dakota very nearly beat Kansas State, and they're one of the class teams in FCS as well. I don't think Purdue is in a position to take anybody lightly, but I would say SIU compares favorably with the FBS schools that you'd find in the 80s and 90s. I mean, this is a team that's used to winning games against FBS opponents.
Yeah, they were really hamstrung by injuries last year, Derek. It got so bad they had to pull a graduate transfer off their staff to be their quarterback. So far, so good this year. They're healthy. They won their opener against a D2 school. Nick Hill's their coach. This is his 10th year. He's a quarterback in Carbondale, a very good quarterback. And he actually engineered a win at Indiana when he was a quarterback of SIU. And as the head coach, he's engineered, I think, 3 wins over FBS schools. Most recently, 2023, they beat Northern Illinois. In 2022, they beat Northwestern. So long story short, Derek and Dub, they're not going to be intimidated coming in here. They've been there and done that. And, it's a program you do have to respect, Derek. Like you said, a nice quarterback. They really like this kid, DJ Williams. He's a bigger guy. I spoke to their play-by-play guy. We'll hear from a little bit later. But they really like this quarterback, and they think he can do some things. A very senior-dominated team as well. So, yeah, I mean, you never want to take anybody lightly. And here we are, guys. The next game's USC. You can pay lip service and say, yeah, we take these guys seriously. No one, but we'll find out on Saturday, right? Purdue isn't holding its breath going into the fourth quarter, clinging to a narrow lead. So it's going to be very interesting to really see how dialed in Purdue is on Saturday night.
Yeah, speaking of being dialed in, Dub, what would you most like to see Purdue build upon from that week 1 performance? What area maybe still needs the most improvement or is the most unproven with what we know so far? I know we're talking about a small sample, we're talking about one game, but even kind of going back to camp, one of those areas that you want to see them lift up.
I think the one clear one's the offensive line, just being more consistent up there. That's been a big topic of discussion this week. I think that's the biggest thing that they need to improve on, especially against a Ball State team that they should have overpowered a lot of the time, and they just didn't. So the offensive line needs to have a chip on their shoulder. They need to go in and dominate an FCS opponent like they should. If they can't, then you got bigger fish to fry when USC and Notre Dame and Illinois and Ohio State and the rest of those teams play. You're in a world of hurt. So, Vance Weiss has his work cut out for him. And, I think they have, Tom and I were very high on the offensive line heading into the season. So the sky isn't falling after one game just in terms of that. But I'd like to see them improve it and be more consistent and allow Ryan Brown to stay clean in the pocket. I think even though they didn't give up very many sacks, I think Ryan Brown got hit quite a bit. More than I would like if I was Purdue. So keeping Ryan Brown upright and healthy is the main objective, and we'll see if the Purdue offensive line can do it.
Yeah, and they never really uncorked that running game, did they, Tom? I don't know if it was a bad day. It was just kind of a meh sort of day for the rush offense, I thought.
Yeah, 93 yards rushing, and Dub hit the nail on the head there. There are some concerns up front, but someone said to me, now remember, the most improvement teams make is usually between the first game and the second game. So maybe we'll see a big jump, right? But look, no disrespect to SIU, but I'm going to disrespect them here. If Purdue can't push around an FCS program and on the line of scrimmage, like Dub said, what's going to happen when they roll into Ann Arbor, when the Buckeyes hit West Lafayette, when they go up to South Bend, on and on it goes, this litany of games they've got. So this is going to be an interesting test offensive line wise. This is the kind of game, if you're who you think you are, you should run for about 300 yards, right?
Yeah. And
just dominate and run over these guys and have to throw about 10 passes. Dub talked about the offensive line. I think tackling is another area Barry Odom talked about right after the game Saturday. That's not a big shock. Tackling was a little sloppy, especially in the second half. It's early in the season, right? Yeah, I think the pass rush too. They had 4 sacks, but I think the pass rush could be a little bit better as well. I'm certainly going to be watching C.J. Madden, Trey Smith, see what kind of get off these guys can get and really be disruptive.
It'll be interesting. Tom and Dub will be there under the lights Saturday night at Ross-Ade Stadium for Purdue and SIU in game number 2 this season. You can follow along Tom and Dub all season long. They provide the best Purdue on-the-field play and off-the-field recruiting coverage that you can get right here at goldenblack.com, at Tom Dienhart1 and at Dub Jellison on X, and right here, of course, goldenblack.com. Guys, we'll bring it back on for the roundtable, so we'll see you in a few.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Derek.
That's Tom and Dub as we continue Golden Black Radio, this Friday edition of the show. Wanted to, again, thank our great sponsors that make this show possible, including East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. And the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Tom had mentioned Luke Martin, Indiana kid. I remember Luke from his days at Indiana State. Great dude, really talented guy. I say kid. He's well into his career now. He is the voice of the SIU Salukis, and he joined Tom early this week for a conversation about Saturday's game, which we bring to you right now here on Golden Black Radio.
All right. We have Luke Martin, the voice of Southern Illinois football, with us. Very pleased to have Luke join us. Of course, Purdue will play the Salukis Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time on Big Ten Network in West Lafayette. And we have Luke here to sort of educate us on SIU. Luke, welcome. Let's jump right in the deep end, my friend. Tell us what fans can expect from the SIU offense on Saturday night.
Well, thankfully, from a Saluki fan perspective, Tom, it's good to be with you. Appreciate the invitation. They're healthy. Last year was documented very well. The Salukis had to pull a graduate assistant off of their coaching staff to play quarterback at the end of the year. They had that many injuries. DJ Williams, who is the starter, broke a finger in his throwing hand game 3 of the season. And to really put in perspective how important he was to SIU's offense, he was still the leading rusher until the last game of the year. And he only played in not even 3 full games. That's how active and important he is. It's a healthy offensive line that returns a lot of seniors up front, that many of those guys, such as a Derek Harden and Aiden Logan, missed all of last year. The biggest question offensively is, do they have enough weapons around DJ Williams to consistently put up points? And now with head coach Nick Hill back as the offensive play calling, which he's had in his career and his tenure before, it's just the last couple of years, Blake Rowland has had those duties, who's now at Wisconsin, is do they have the skill around DJ? They really love DJ. They love their tight end room with Aiden Quinn and Ryan Schwindeman being back and healthy this year as well. It's just, can those skill guys who internally they feel really good about, Tom, but they now have to show that on a field against somebody else, and no doubt show it against much better competition than Division II Thomas More over this past weekend.
Luke, what can we expect from the Saluki defense on Saturday?
The Saluki defense is under a new coordinator as well, Lee Pronchinsky. He was on staff a year ago. He was the safeties coach last year. Coach Hill made a change in the offseason to promote Coach Pron. Antonio James, who left, is now at Illinois. And Coach Pron has brought in kind of his own twist. Again, big sigh for a Saluki fan when you think defensively is they got their key guys healthy again. Colin Bohannick, Mike linebacker, he tore his bicep week 2 of the season on the very first drive against Austin Peay, was a non-factor a year ago. Andrew Boehm, who's been a really good linebacker in fall camp. He transferred into the program last year from Akron. He is healthy. Trying not to be a broken record here, Tom, but last year was just a really tough year for Southern in terms of injuries, and now they're just able to sustain them. And that's probably the biggest difference and one of the differences between FCS and FBS, and no doubt the question in terms of the Power 4 where Purdue is at. It's just your depth as you go throughout your team, and you feel really good about your 2 deep initially. Southern had to go much deeper than their 2 deep, especially on both sides of the ball. But Bohannick and Andrew Beamer, as they call him within the program, they feel really good about those guys. But then they have to answer some major questions on the back end of that defense. They've had experienced guys that have played a lot of snaps that now are gone this year. And last year it was a Saluki defense that really struggled to defend, especially when it came to teams throwing the ball against the Dogs. That's, of course, what Purdue had great success against Ball State. So that will be an area that Saluki fans will no doubt have circled. And for Purdue offensively, can they take advantage of just a not very proven secondary yet for SIU?
Yeah, Purdue coming off a nice 31-0 win versus Ball State. SIU taking down Thomas More in their opener as well. And you talked about Ryan Brown, 311 yards passing, the only Big Ten quarterback to eclipse the 300-yard passing mark in week 1. Luke, kind of how do you see this game unfolding? I know I did a little research. SIU has a history of knocking off FCS programs, or I should say FBS programs.
They do. This will be Coach Hill's 10th FBS game. And when you just look in his tenure, Tom, the previous 9, 7 of the 9 have been decided by less than 2 possessions. So they've been in these games. Last year at BYU, it was 16-7 at halftime. And really, it was a disappointment because Southern had won their last 2 FBS games, Northwestern and Northern Illinois, and everyone left like, man, this is a bummer. We're not used to losing some of these games. Then what does BYU do? They almost go all the way to the college football playoff. And I think everyone looked back on week 1 last year and was like, we actually held our own pretty good because BYU turned out to be much better. But I think, Southern's going to have to play well to even just have a chance to be in the game and a chance to win it. And when you look through Southern's history, it's been the turnover margin. When they have won these type of games, they have forced turnovers and they have gotten extra possessions. That's not rocket science. That's kind of the formula for a lot of FCS teams when they go into environments like this. You can't make many mistakes, and you got to try to force your opponent into mistakes. And that's what Purdue did really well against Ball State. They just didn't turn the football over. There weren't any major mistakes. SIU is going to have to try to get Purdue in that sort of predicament. But this is a team, as you mentioned, Tom. Coach Hill has been a part of 6 of the 7 FBS wins as a player and as a head coach. He was the quarterback of SIU the first time any team from the Gateway then, now Missouri Valley Football Conference, beat a Big Ten team when they went on the road and beat Indiana. He, of course, was the head coach when they won at Northwestern. And they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to be looking forward to the opportunity. And this is a program that's used to this kind of stage, and they really relish in this opportunity, and they'll have a lot of fun on Saturday night.
Yeah, they got nothing to lose, right, Luke? That's the beauty of their position. And yeah, Purdue is unbeaten still against FCS teams. I think they're 10-0 all time. But like you said, my friend, SIU has a history of knocking off the big boys, and I've got a lot of memories of seeing, you do too, of FCS schools going in and ambushing bigger programs. I remember Rock Spack taking Illinois State to Northwestern, and winning a few years ago too. So yeah, Purdue has their radar up, and it should be a beautiful night for football, Luke. The weather's supposed to be great. Should have a pretty good crowd, and there should be a good atmosphere when you guys roll into town. I'll look for you in the press box, and we really appreciate you coming by and giving us some education on the opponent Purdue's going to see tonight.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. Come by the booth and say hi.
Will do, buddy.
Thanks to Luke Martin for that great insight into SIU. Happy for him and all his success over there in Carbondale. Again, we should have some gorgeous fall weather, elite hoodie and shorts weather for those who celebrate at Ross-Ade Stadium on Saturday night. Chad Evans has your game day forecast.
Hi, everyone. Meteorologist Chad Evans here with a look at your forecast for the Purdue SIU Salukis matchup for Saturday evening. Game time, 7:30. Mostly clear skies, nice and cool. Temperatures falling at game time. At the start, temperatures running in the low 60s before falling into the mid-50s by the time the game is over, with a light northwest wind becoming calm. So I have the hoodies and the jacket's going to be fall-like. Boiler up.
You can check out Chad's blog, of course, the Chad's weather blog on Substack, where he does a terrific job, especially with the local forecast for those of you in Tippecanoe County and the Lafayette area. Really appreciate Chad contributing to Gold and Black Radio. This portion of the show brought to you by Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler up, and goldenblack.com. Analysis reports, shows like this one, Knucklehead Central. You get it all at goldenblack.com. Subscribe today. In fact, the publisher, the presidente of goldenblack.com is our friend Alan Karpick, who joins us now for our historical perspective and just general Purdue thoughts as well. Alan, hi. How are you? Hope you're doing great. What did you think of Saturday's performance? And did you feel like there was some catharsis involved for Purdue fans to see the Boilermakers come out and play the way that they did?
Well, I thought so. I mean, the fact that they just took care of business. I didn't think it was flashy, but I like the fact that Purdue did not make many mistakes. Just went in and got the job done, and I think that was a good thing. Ryan Brown certainly was impressive. I thought not only Michael Jackson, but the receiving core gives you some hope that Purdue will have an offense that will be able to at least cause some level of a sleepless night for a defensive coordinator. We know Devin Mockabee can be better than or run for more yards than he did. I don't think Purdue necessarily emphasized that a lot. But, I think all things are pointing in the right direction. And yet we probably aren't going to find out a lot more this weekend. We'll see. All eyes will be on USC. But I think if you're Purdue, you want to, again, if you want to have a dress rehearsal, you want to do it well and do it without making many mistakes on Saturday night in Ross-Ade.
Yeah, and we've seen FCS competition come in and beat the big boys. In fact, Southern Illinois did it to Northwestern a couple of years ago. We've seen Big Ten teams falling victim to it. I remember not that long ago, Florida State and I think it was Jacksonville State that went to Doak Campbell and beat them as well. But Purdue, I shouldn't say surprisingly because that almost sounds condescending, but they've never lost to an FCS team in their history. I found that actually sort of interesting considering that FCS teams have had a lot of success. Again, you see 4, 5, 6 FCS wins, I feel like every fall over FBS competition.
Well, and I know it's 14-0, and going back, I think to the 1990 season against Indiana State was the first game against an FCS opponent for Purdue. They've played Eastern Kentucky a few times. They played Illinois State back in a kind of an extra throw-in game in 2002 when Purdue was looking for a 12th game that season, and they had to find one late. But yeah, it's gone relatively well. They haven't, with the exception of the 2013 game against Indiana State, where if it had been soccer or English European football, Indiana State would have won that game if they'd have just allowed 3 minutes of extra time because the Sycamores were running down the field and taking control. I think Ricardo Allen had an interception late in that game to save the day for Purdue because Indiana State was going to beat Purdue that day in Darrell Hazel's first season.
Yeah, and I find it interesting. Not that I'm opposed to night football. I love football under the lights, but Illinois State, Purdue, and just an FBS versus FCS matchup in general, that strikes me as a noon kickoff game, not a 7:30 one.
Well, and it's all. I mean, you're talking about Southern Illinois and Purdue this weekend.
Southern Illinois and Purdue this weekend.
And it's television. They need inventory. BTN wants to do games. You're right. It has noon kickoff written all over, but they throw some games in there. They throw that 7:30 BTN game. Seems to be, let's be honest, where the Boilermakers are in the marketplace right now. That's where they are, and it's a slot that goes up. They figure, who else has got the Peacock that's got the big game on Saturday night, and there's a lot of competition for that eyeball. ESPN obviously as well.
I do find it interesting that even though the football programs don't have much history, there's a lot of connective tissue between the men's basketball programs in the sense that SIU was Bruce Weber's first head job after nearly 2 decades with Gene Cady, right? And a really successful run there on Gene Cady's staff. And then he ends up going to Illinois, and who's he replaced by? Matt Painter, who spends 1 year there and then takes the head coach and waiting job under Gene Cady for his final season. I always kind of found that tie-in to be, it's just sort of random. I guess, it's a bordering state. Carbondale's not that far away, but the fact that you would have a head coach like Matt Painter have a tie-in there, and then Bruce Weber, who played such an integral role on some of the best Purdue basketball teams of all time on Gene Cady's staff, I always kind of find that quirky and fun.
It is quirky, and we're grasping at straws for connections, but that really is an important one. And Matt Painter, of course, at just 1 year wins 25 games in his 1 year. Bruce Weber got the Salukis to the Sweet 16 before he got the Illinois job. This is it's more than just Walt Clyde Frazier, that led the Salukis to the NIT championship in the mid '60s. And still is dressing up well at the Garden these days for that Pacers-Knicks series. He was still front and center. But yeah, that's a fun connection. And I know that Matt Painter and Bruce Weber have a very soft spot for not only basketball in Carbondale, but that whole athletic department because it's a really good place to learn to coach and get an opportunity to coach. And in basketball, especially, you have a chance to make waves.
Yeah, I mean, when that program was right, when Weber was there and Painter were there, I remember that was a bit of that was a hornet's nest going to Carbondale. I remember teams playing road games there, and it was a really great home court. I mean, we're talking about, 20, 25 years ago, but that was they were a Sweet 16 team, weren't they? Somewhere in there?
They were with Jermaine Dearman and Kent Williams, two guys. Kent Williams came and worked on the staff with Matt Painter at Purdue, I believe, for a year or two, or he was the director of basketball operations. But yes, Bruce Weber got them to the Sweet 16, and they had two really good seasons. And of course, Matt Painter followed that up. I think Matt got unfortunately beat early in the NCAA tournament, but had a 25-5 year, I believe was when it was a 25-4 in the regular season for the Salukis. So it's a basketball hotbed. Purdue has to hope it's not too much of a football hotbed. They've got a good football tradition too, though.
Yeah,
it's just been at the FCS level.
Well, and we were talking about that with Tom and Dub. I mean, this is a team that's in the top 15 of the FCS level,
right?
And I know it's FCS and FBS. It's supposed to be another level, but if you look at where Ball State is right now as a program, and you look at where Southern Illinois is on their level, like, to me, those are almost like peer programs. If not, I mean, if Southern Illinois played Ball State today, they probably win, right? Am I wrong in saying that?
Well, I think we're going to find out. It'll be interesting to see, because it right now, Southern Illinois' offense scares me a little bit more than what we saw. Of course, I'm looking back in the rearview mirror with what we saw at Ball State, but I think it would be a best of 7 series. It might go 7 games between Ball State and Southern Illinois if they played each other. So, you have to, again, I think, as Tom pointed out earlier, Purdue's got to have its antennas up and be ready to play. Yes, I expect Purdue to roll, but this is not a program, and I think Barry Odom would be the first to talk about this. It can't look past anybody, and it needs to play well. And it needs to play well just because you need another good performance heading into this schedule. It's going to be very, very difficult over the next 3 weeks.
And we'll have our historical perspectives all season long here on these Friday editions of Gold and Black Radio, and we appreciate it. And stick around, because we'll bring you back for the roundtable here in just a sec, Alan.
Sounds great. Thank you.
This portion of the show brought to you by Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. But before we get to our roundtable, another word from one of our sponsors in BetMGM. As you all know by now, Gold and Black Radio has also teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet. Offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that can expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Got the whole gang here for the roundtable, and I wanted to actually lead off. This was a question that I was really hoping to ask Brian Newbert. It's very much a Brian Newbert question. Alan's going to roll his eyes. The Salukis. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Saluki before. I don't know about you guys either. I'm a dog person, very much a dog. I love animals, period. I like cats too. Salukis to me are kind of creepy looking. They look like dogs with human hair. Have you guys seen a Saluki?
No, but I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, look.
I just did while you were
Saluki.
And the answer is, I think maybe I have, but maybe I didn't know. They almost like a little bit of a greyhoundy-esque type deal.
But with like with like woman's hair, like a greyhound with like a woman's hair, like your mom's hair or something.
They call that part of the state Little Egypt, and I guess that's an Egyptian dog, and that's the connection there. Yeah. So it's that's I guess a little bit more history than you probably want on SIU, but there you go.
I have seen.
We all have to harness our inner Newbert here, so that's good.
right.
I appreciate. No New York Yankees stuff though here. I promise.
I'll
Real
pass on
quick,
that.
guys.
I just already knowledge.
Who do you think was the greatest SIU football player ever?
I'd have to look up their notable.
It was
football
I think
Bart Scott.
I think Jim Hart, the quarterback for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Bart Scott was good. You're right, Dub. He's more recent vintage.
Yeah.
There you go, Jim Hart.
Cardinals were pretty good under Jim Hart. I'd forgotten that he had been there.
He was the AD there too a little bit later.
Yeah.
Man, that goes back before like Dub's parents. So that's we're going to St. Louis football Cardinals. We're going way back there. Guys, I wanted to get your impression. There are some games this weekend. I mean, Michigan, Oklahoma. I think Illinois got a kind of a funky game at Duke because we don't see teams really do that very much where they play the true road games there. But I want to get your kind of week one thoughts. We had a couple of standout prominent games. Notre Dame going to Miami. Obviously, the Texas-Oklahoma game with Arch Manning. And Tom, I'm just fascinated by this post-Saban Alabama. They don't look anything like, and not just the fact that they're not winning. It's just they don't look like recent vintage Alabama to me. I think we need to stop kind of giving them. I think Vegas, especially, and the bettors are giving them the benefit of the doubt that they don't deserve.
Yeah, Kalen DeBoer. Poor Kalen DeBoer probably wishes he'd never left. You know, you're never supposed to be the guy who follows the guy. You want to be the guy who follows the guy. How do you replace Nick Saban? I guess you don't, right? You don't.
I'm raising my hand though. There's $90 million buyout, so he's okay.
I guess they're 5-5 in their last 10 games, but it's funny they still rush the field when they beat Bama. That's like the 10th or 11th time in a row they've lost on the road when the opponents have rushed the field. So, yeah, he's got a kind of a big ditch to dig out of. That will be a good, interesting storyline. I already saw a hot board for Alabama head coaches, guys. So they're ready after one game with the hot board. Yeah, you can get LSU Clemson. How about the Tigers against the Tigers with the Bayou Bengals going on the road to their Death Valley? A nice win for Brian Kelly. Miami, of course, taking care of ND late. And talked about Ohio State, too, right? Went ugly, 14-7. Sat on Arch Manning. How good is Arch Manning? We shall see. And guys, one of the biggest stories, Monday Night Football, right? Bill Belichick.
Oh, God. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
We could have
a third quarter.
Oh, what a disaster that game ended up being. But, yeah, I do think that what we saw from Ohio State, we talk about changing the narrative. We're going this way with Alabama. Are we going this way now with Ryan Day? I mean, I can't imagine somebody's had a better 5-6 game stretch than what he's had since that embarrassment against Michigan.
Dub, we're going to give you the mic here. Tom and I will take it off if you're not careful.
No, a lot of people were calling for Ryan Day's job after that last loss to Michigan. He goes out and wins himself a national championship, and he can put all the haters to bed now, at least for the time being. You're never safe in the industry, but Ohio State and Ryan Day, I think they've kind of come into their own. And I stopped short of saying I shouldn't have said that because his winning percentage is off the charts. One of the top 5 coaches in all of college football, if not number one. I think it's kind of up for debate, but it was just Michigan and their run that they went on is one of the sole reasons why I think there's so much discourse about him and the Ohio State job. You take those guys out of the picture. If they win those games, I think we talk about Ryan Day in a completely different light prior to that national championship game win. But the Buckeyes still look solid. I know it wasn't the prettiest win, but you beat the number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. So you got to take it and run. So Ohio State's not going anywhere.
I'm going to say one thing, 12 weeks. That's how much longer the Ryan Day's honeymoon is going to last. Mm-hmm. I think that's when they play Michigan. Yeah. He better get the job done. But, yeah, it's crazy over there. I mean, the fact that how many people of you guys have heard that when Ohio State – that I still don't believe Ohio State fans really believe this, that they would have rather beaten Michigan than won the national championship. I don't buy that, but that seems a little bit crazy, but they'd better beat Michigan this year, that's for sure. But Ryan Day's a great football coach, no doubt.
I will say it was about as weird of a national title as you could have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's the national title, and it didn't feel quite complete, I think, with that loss to Michigan. But it's still It's still the national title. You can't take something like that for granted. Just going around the room quickly as we wrap up here. Anything about this week 2 schedule that jumps out to you? Even some parting Purdue thoughts, if you guys have any. Alan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think they always talk about lack of national games. I guess maybe one of the marquee games is Oklahoma and Michigan. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see because Brent Venables needs a win, needs to get his program to where he wants it to be. Michigan needs to keep that momentum going. They weren't great against New Mexico, but I think that'll be interesting. And I think the last thing I'll say before we get to Tom is that night football, it's going to be a good crowd. Purdue, like I said, it just put out another good performance and let the chips fall where they may. It may take that to have a romp. If you're going to beat Southern Illinois soundly, you're going to have to play well to do so, I think.
I tell you what, Illinois at Duke, talked about that earlier, Derek. Manny Diaz is a heck of a coach there in Durham. Illinois should be prepared, and Duke's going to come after him for sure. And then the Cy-Hawk game, right? I always love the Cy-Hawk.
Yeah.
Iowa at Iowa State, of course. Matt Campbell's stock is now ascending rapidly as we speak. A win by Kirk Ferentz, guys, I think makes him the Big Ten all-time winningest coach, if you can believe that. So, yeah, that'll be it's always, like I said, a fun game to watch. A little extra juice this year with those things I mentioned there. And, Alan talked about the big game in Norman, Oklahoma. Boston College and Michigan State. Be a nice little referendum for Jonathan Smith, I think. Yeah. How about UCLA at UNLV?
Yeah.
Dan Mullen going against the Bruins team that looked terrible last week. So, yeah, there's some meat on the bone in that Big Ten schedule this week, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to start with that Illinois and Duke game. I think Illinois is a trendy pick to make it to the college football playoff, and this is where Brett Bielema is going to have to go and show that this team is ready for that. If Illinois wants to be in the college football playoff, this is a game that they have to go win at Duke. Darian Mensah, supposedly the highest paid quarterback in all of college football. He looked very impressive in week 1. So Illinois, that's a big test for them. The Cy-Hawk game, I think, is one of the more underrated rivalry games in college football. I always enjoy watching it. It's kind of a throwback, more Big Ten-esque, in my opinion. So I'm excited for that game. And then when it comes to Purdue, I don't think that they should put too much emphasis on, Southern Illinois being the number 14 ranked team in the FCS. I think they just need to go out and play their game, and there won't be any troubles with them. So if they go and do that, you can see another game similar to the performance that they had against Ball State.
I don't know if they still play for it, but a couple of years ago, this might have been more like 10, 15 years ago. Unsurprisingly, the main sponsor for the Cy-Hawk game was the Iowa Corn Growers Association. Mm-hmm. And I believe they came up with a trophy that had a family huddled around a bushel of corn. And of course it went viral as, what is this? Who would actually want this trophy? And ever since then, I've been just glued to the screen for the Cy-Hawk games. It's always like 16-13, which I really like. But that should be a fun one. And kind of to go on your point, Dub, people want to crown Illinois, but I'm still kind of taking the wait and see approach about where they are. And maybe that's weighted too much on Purdue's nearly come from out of nowhere victory there in overtime last year. But guys, it's going to be a fun week and it's going to be a fun night. Post-game show to follow. Thanks to everybody that tuned in as well. And Alan, you did a great job kind of running the 1s and 2s there, but looking forward to that and looking forward to another night at Ross-Ade Stadium. And we'll talk to you guys next week on Gold and Black Radio.
Yeah, I was going to say, Derek, if you can't get to sleep, call in, man. We'll put you on.
Call in under an assumed name.
Yeah.
There it is. Burning the midnight oil. Those are always the fun calls, the ones that come in at like 1 a.m. Those are the great ones.
We're not taking calls, but you know how to get onto our little. You can join us anytime. All you got to do is log in.
Might do that from my pajamas. I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but yeah, we'll try to make that happen.
Make sure your face is lit. You're all good.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Derek.
That's Tom, Alan, Dub, and that is our show, Gold and Black Radio Friday edition. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you to our presenting sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as BetMGM, our friends at Purdue Federal Credit Union. the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Of course, you can leave a positive review on whatever platform you're utilizing, YouTube, podcast platform, whatever else. And if you haven't already, you're going to want to subscribe to goldandblack.com, the best Boilermakers sports coverage, not just football, but a big recruiting week in basketball this week with a big commitment as well that Brian talked about. Really, the basketball stuff happens year-round. Goldandblack.com is where you find everything there. And then, of course, our channel on YouTube, and all of our podcast feeds as well. If you want to subscribe and enable alerts, that would be awesome. So you're never missing your great Purdue content here at goldandblack.com. But until the Saturday simulcast and the post-game show following Southern Illinois, we bid you adieu. The next edition of Gold and Black Radio will be Tuesday, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much for joining us.